When you worry about your health, what concerns you the most? In the past, most people worried about cancer or heart disease. Not any longer. Surveys show that 6 times as many people are more fearful of developing dementia than they are of cancer or heart disease. Now, I'll tell you how to dramatically reduce those fears and your risk of dementia and Alzheimer's on today's episode of Ask Dr. Walt.
Today, our health includes our mind, our body, and our spirit. Separating medical facts from fiction is the key that leads to wise decisions about our health and well-being. Unpacking the latest research is vital. Doing what works helps us live our best lives today. How can we live longer? How can we live healthier? Let's ask Dr. Walt on Liftable TV.
Hi everyone, I'm family physician Dr. Walt Larimore, and I'm pleased that you're taking the time to join me in my home office. Now, aging of the brain happens to all of us. We don't really realize that because it's happening initially at a slow process, but aging begins when we're very young and is associated with changes in brain structure and function. But starting about age 40, brain change accelerates. Brain volume and weight decrease at a rate of about 5% every 10 years. But the speed of loss increases dramatically after age 70. Now, age-related memory loss is a common and normal complaint that typically starts between the ages of 40 and 50. The old joke among doctors is that normal age-related memory loss is forgetting where you put your keys. Abnormal is not remembering what the keys are used for. Now, dementia is kind of the umbrella term, the overarching term for a family of progressive brain diseases that slowly destroys memory and thinking skills. And there's a spectrum from normal age-related memory loss on one hand to Alzheimer's disease, which is actually the most common form of dementia. But Alzheimer's is 100% fatal, and it's the only top 10 cause of death in the U.S. with no known cure. It's also the third leading cause of death after heart disease and cancer. In a 2019 survey, almost half of Americans in their 50s and 60s believed they were at least somewhat likely to develop dementia, even though the estimated proportion of the population aged 60 and over with dementia is only about 5 to 8%. Another U.S. survey found almost 1 in 3 adults, 31%, identified Alzheimer's disease as their most feared illness when presented with a long list of other health issues like cancer, stroke, heart disease, and diabetes. And in another poll, 6 times as many older people were more fearful of developing dementia than they were cancer. On top of that, people increasingly understand there are no medical cures for Alzheimer's. So no wonder Alzheimer's has been called the most feared disease in the U.S. So I'm going to devote this and our next program to the topic of brain health and what you can do to protect yourself and your family from dementia. So we're going to start with the questions and comments that you sent in about brain health. And then at the end of the show, I'll tell you how to send in your questions for our next program on brain health. So our first question comes from Catherine in Coppell, Texas. Catherine, I hope I'm saying that right. There are so many ads for supplements for brain health. What works? And that's a great place to begin our program, but because people are so fearful about dementia and Alzheimer's, more and more consumers are buying into the hype surrounding natural medicines like herbs, vitamins, and supplements to either prevent brain decline or improve brain health. In fact, the FDA, the Food and Drug Administration, estimates that 80% of older adults rely on dietary supplements, many that purport to prevent or treat Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. So in 2019, the AARP did a brain health and dietary supplement survey of the whole country, and they reported that more than a quarter of Americans aged 50 and older are regularly taking at least one supplement for brain health reasons. Another survey reported that 1/3 or more adults were taking supplements to ward off memory decline. As a result, the sales of supplements claiming to boost memory have nearly increased from about $1.5 billion in 2006 to, listen to this, an estimated almost $6 billion by 2023. Now, here's the bad news. Almost every one of you who are concerned and fearful are wasting your money. Here's why. The bottom line is there's no over-the-counter drug, there's no medical food, there's no natural medicine, no herb, no vitamin, no supplement that has ever produced a clear benefit for helping to preserve memory, or for preventing Alzheimer's disease, or preventing or treating any form of dementia. In fact, the experts at natural medicines write, I quote, "There is no therapy to slow the natural cognitive decline that occurs with aging." In 2018, AARP became so concerned about this that they formed what they called the Global Council on Brain Health. It was an independent collaborative of scientists, health professionals, scholars, and policy experts from around the world, all of whom were working in the areas of brain health related to human cognition. And in their exhaustive report of 2019, these international experts all concluded, they said, we do not endorse any ingredient, any product, or any supplement formulation specifically for brain health unless your healthcare provider has identified that you have a specific nutrient deficiency. The report analyzed every single existing study in every language on every supplement that claimed to boost cognition. I mean, everything from fish oil to jellyfish to vitamins to minerals and gobs of herbs. And the AARP report concluded, we do not recommend any dietary supplement for brain health. No, not one. I mean, are you getting the message here? There are no natural medicines or supplements of any type that help the average person for brain health. Nada, naught, nothing, zilch, zero. So should you turn this show off? Should you skip the rest of it? No, heaven forbid, because there is help and there is hope available for you and for your family. And I want to give you that, but let's start with our next question first. So this one comes from Doris from Columbus, Georgia. She writes, I'm still young. What can I do now to prevent dementia? Well, a woman named Christy Murray from the Alzheimer Research Center in the United Kingdom says that this is the most common question put to them. It's well known that both genetic and lifestyle factors both play a huge role in determining your individual risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease. However, any genetic risk you may have can be offset by lifestyle factors. Daniel Merman, MD, the director of the Memory Disorders Program at the University of Nebraska, writes this, and I quote, there's emerging evidence that healthy lifestyle choices improve brain health. And he specifically mentions the following as evidence-based, proven, if you would, ways to not only prevent dementia or Alzheimer's, but slow it down once you have it. Here they are. Eating a healthful diet, avoiding excessive alcohol consumption, avoid tobacco products, exercise regularly, participate in brain games, cognitive stimulating activities, avoid social isolation, manage emotional stress, which might include meditation or prayer, managing medical problems like hypertension, diabetes, depression, and sleep apnea. So healthy lifestyle choices cut your risk of developing Alzheimer's disease by up to 60%. In fact, a 2019 study reported that healthy lifestyle choices not only stopped cognitive decline in people who are at risk for Alzheimer's, but also increased their memory and thinking skills within 18 months. And one of the study authors, a neurologist by the name of Richard Isaacson, he's an MD, he's the founder of the Alzheimer's Prevention Clinic at New York Presbyterian and Weill Cornell Medical Center. He said this. That was a mouthful, wasn't it? So here's what he said, and I quote, our data actually shows cognitive improvement. This is the first study in a real-world clinic setting showing individualized clinical management, these lifestyle choices, may improve cognitive function and also reduce Alzheimer's and cardiovascular risk. When asked what the two most important interventions were, this is what he said. Physical activity and nutrition were by far the two most important things on the list. But these were personalized for each individual. So there is hope. Our next question comes from Denise in Monrovia, California. She writes, in a previous program, you mentioned how nutrition affects risk of dementia. Is there a particular diet that you recommend? Great jog of my memory. I should have mentioned it early in the program, but my recommendation as far as nutrition to prevent dementia and Alzheimer's is based on a number of studies. For example, in 2020, 2 studies reported that risk for cognitive impairment could be reduced by half by closely following the Mediterranean-style diet. Dr. Emily Chu, who directs the Division of Epidemiology and Clinical Applications at the National Eye Institute, which is in Bethesda, Maryland, writes this. She says, people with higher adherence to the Mediterranean diet had almost a 45 to 50% reduction in the risk of having impaired cognition. So closely following the Mediterranean-style diet was defined as this: eating fish twice a week, regularly consuming fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, legumes, and olive oil, while reducing the consumption of red meat and alcohol. High fish and vegetable consumption were also associated with the greatest protective effect. When Dr. Isaacson reviewed the studies, this is what he said: the evidence continues to mount that you are what you eat when it comes to brain health. Our next question comes from Matt from Dearborn Heights, Michigan. He writes, have you ever heard of the MIND diet? A friend tells me it can reduce my risk of Alzheimer's. Absolutely, Matt. In fact, it kind of expands on our previous question. MIND, M-I-N-D, stands for the Mediterranean-Diet Intervention for Neurodegenerative Delay. The MIND is both the Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet that I've talked about before. But the deal in the diet as much as what they call the MIND diet score. And it's based on an evaluation of how much food that you consume that's either healthy, from healthy food groups, such as leafy green vegetables, other vegetables, nuts, berries, beans, whole grains, fish, poultry, olive oil, and wine, or less healthy food groups like red meats and butter and stick margarine and cheese and pastries and sweets, fried food, fast food. So more of the former and less of the latter gives you a higher MIND score. And a huge 2020 review that followed over 2,500 older Americans for about 6 years reported that when the high-quality MIND diet, either the Mediterranean type diet or the DASH diet, was combined with other healthy lifestyle factors, then you even more significantly decreased your risk of Alzheimer's or dementia. So the lifestyle factors were a high MIND diet score, not smoking, engaging in more than 150 minutes per week of moderate to vigorous physical activity, light to moderate alcohol consumption, meaning no more than 1 drink a day for women and 2 for men, and engagement in cognitive activities such as reading, writing, playing chess. The risk of Alzheimer's dementia was 37% lower in those who only did 2 or 3 of those lifestyle factors. But for those who did 4 or 5 of those factors, their risk dropped 60% compared with those who didn't do any of these or maybe only did 1 of them. It's good news. Our next question is from Rosalie from Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Rosalie comments, I've read that good nutrition results in good brain health. Yep. I'm guessing it helps my health in other ways also, right? Like heart health? Absolutely. That's the good news is bingo, you're absolutely correct. And it's even better than that because adopting healthy lifestyle habits is a relatively inexpensive and risk-free way to increase both the quality of your life and the quantity of your years. Because healthy living not only prevents or significantly delays dementia and Alzheimer's, but also a bunch of other chronic diseases, cardiovascular diseases, inflammatory diseases, and some types of cancer. And furthermore, if you participate in the 5 most unhealthy lifestyle habits, smoking, not exercising, being overweight or obese, drinking too much alcohol, and eating an unhealthy diet, then you're not only significantly increasing your risk of poor brain health, but you also increase your risk of poor cardiovascular health, including increased risk of hypertension, heart attack, heart failure, stroke, as well as quite a number of forms of cancer, as well as premature death. In fact, those poor lifestyle choices explain up to 3/4 of premature cardiovascular deaths, about half of the premature cancer deaths in the U.S. each year. It's not supplements. It's healthy lifestyle decisions. And you don't have to do them all at once. You can just start one at a time. Well, let's go on to our next question. I think I'm preaching now a little too much. Alexis from Springfield, Oregon writes, dementia runs in my family real strong. My family doctor says there's nothing to do. What do you advise? Well, I suspect your doctor was referring to the fact that no supplements or medications can make a difference. But these lifestyle habits that I'm talking about today have been shown to dramatically reduce your risk of dementia or Alzheimer, even if you have genes that raise the risk for these mind-destroying diseases. In fact, British researchers found that regardless of how much genetic risk someone has, a good diet, adequate exercise, limiting alcohol, and not smoking made dementia dramatically less likely. John Haga, he's a PhD at the U.S. National Institute of Aging, said this, I consider this good news. No one can guarantee you'll escape this awful disease, but you can tip the odds in your favor with clean living. Next up, we have Bradley in Milford, Connecticut. Bradley writes, I'm seeing a naturopath who strongly recommends something called nootropics for brain health. She also sells them, and they're pretty expensive. Are they worth the cost? Probably do a whole program on this, but let me just say this about that. Nootropics, first of all, what's it mean? It's just a fancy word that means brain health enhancement supplements. And they can be very, very expensive. Remember, I've told you, every study to date shows they are not worth the cost or the risk. But you've got your naturopath saying something, you got me saying something else, two different opinions, who's right? Look, don't take my word for it. Let's look at what the experts say. For example, Harvard researchers reported this, and I quote, brain enhancement supplements have become increasingly popular. Despite their popularity, the risks of these products are poorly understood. Stephen Dukowski, an MD, the deputy director of the McKnight Brain Institute at the University of Florida, says this, we see plenty of ads on TV, but we have no evidence that any of these things, any vitamin, any various antioxidant, any concoction derived from animals and plants are preventative of dementia or Alzheimer's. And he adds this, some of these supplements are biologically active and can cause toxicity when you take them with other drugs. Jacob Hall, an MD neurologist at Stanford University, writes, there's a lot of fear and desperation surrounding memory loss and the lack of effective medications to prevent or slow it down. Supplement companies are aware of this chasm, and they're rushing increasingly to fill it. There's a forum called ALS Forum, kind of short for Alzheimer's Forum. It's a news website. It's kind of an information resource dedicated to researchers of Alzheimer's disease and related cognitive disorders. And they report this. Researchers believe such supplements offer false hope while shrinking the wallets of people worried about cognitive decline and dementia. Paul Asen, an MD who's an expert in Alzheimer's disease research, and he's the director of the Alzheimer's Therapeutic Research Institute at the University of Southern California, says this, it's very likely that all such remedies are useless. Let me say that again. It's very likely that all such remedies are useless, and some are potentially hazardous. In fact, the Alzheimer's Association notes that even if a supplement is safe to take on its own, it may interact with prescription medicines or other supplements in unpredictable ways. And Mayo Clinic neurologist David Notman, he's an MD researcher in dementia and Alzheimer, adds this. He says, my take is that the extent of false claims made by many supplement or memory-enhancing drug manufacturers is criminal. And I think the FDA may be agreeing. The FDA wrote, simply put, health fraud scams prey on vulnerable populations. They waste money, and they often delay proper medical care. In 2019, the FDA mailed letters to 17 companies formally accusing them of illegally marketing dietary supplements for dementia for the prevention of Alzheimer's. The supplements included vitamins, minerals, herbal products. Some had been investigated for dementia or Alzheimer's, and they were found in large trials to be unsafe or ineffective, yet they're trying to sell them to you. And the FDA has issued more than 40 warning letters in the last 5 years to companies illegal marketing over 80 products making false Alzheimer's or dementia disease claims on websites, social media, even in stores. And in my opinion, unfortunately, the FDA is just playing whack-a-mole. I mean, every time they knock one down, more of them pop up. So let me just sum up this way. Every published neuroscientist in the world, every one of them who wants to help you prevent dementia, help you prevent Alzheimer's, if you or someone you love has it, to help slow it down, every single one of them universally believes brain health supplements are ineffective and a waste of money. Well, my time's up for today. And I still have a stack of your questions about supplements for brain health. I mean, what about fish oil? What about ginkgo? What about antioxidants, multivitamins, B vitamins, vitamin D, and on and on and on? My patients ask, you're asking, and I'm going to address as many of these as I can in our next program. And I'd love to hear from you. What questions do you have about the specific supplements that folks are trying to sell you for brain health? Or what general health questions do you have? Well, just send me your comments or questions to Dr. Walt at liftable.tv. Dr. Walt at liftable.tv. And to learn more about brain health and reducing your risk and the risk of your loved ones for dementia and Alzheimer's disease, consider picking up a copy of one of my best-selling books, which has 2 chapters on brain health. It's called The Natural Medicine's Handbook, and it's available at my website. You can simply go to drwalt.com. Just click on the tab that says Books. Also, at drwalt.com, you can sign up for both my daily Medical News You Can Use blog and my twice-daily biblical devotion called Morning Glory, Evening Grace. So until our next visit, dear friend, I pray that you may enjoy good health and that all may go well with you, even as your soul is getting along well. I'm Dr. Walt Larimore, and I look forward to seeing you for our next episode of Ask Dr. Walt.